Okay, welcome. Oh wow, here we are.
How do you follow that? How do you follow that?
I know.
Wow.
Yeah, Robbie did a good job
He
of
certainly
doing an
did.
intro for us for our crime segment, and of course, thank you, Linda Kay, for being here with us every week. This is a deal for real now.
Right. Yeah, we put the board, the Team Cold Case board, put out a press release yesterday. Had some play with some people and not so much with other people. But the thing is that we've gotten responses.
Yes.
We were just talking right before the show started that there's been a couple of citizens that have contacted us and want to take part. You know, they want to get involved in this. One of them didn't have any personal, didn't know anybody who had been murdered or whatever, but they just want to help. And then, interestingly, also, DNA lab from Texas contacted us.
Really?
Yeah, and said that they can help with, because the lab up in Raleigh, the crime lab in Raleigh's got a backlog. So these folks do genealogy for, whatever.
Wow.
You look up your ancestor and found out that he was General Lee or whatever. These people do that kind of thing, but they also help in these situations.
Wow.
So,
well, do you think, Linda, the criminals, because we've been doing this for several weeks now, and as we go along, it's getting more intense.
Right.
Do you think the criminals are kind of being put on notice, hey, we're going to solve some crimes here?
Absolutely. I think they are. I think, when I do this, I learned a long time ago when I started that it has to be constant. Mm-hmm. If you do a story in the newspaper, you do one story in the newspaper, they might sweat it for a week, but then they're right back to that comfort zone.
Yes.
So that's why I drag things out. That's why we've been talking about Mr. Cobb for several weeks now.
Yes.
That's why in the Enterprise every week I write about Travis Lynch down in Middlesex every week for 6 months. Not giving them any room to go back to normal.
Absolutely.
And these folks, these people are probably not the TV newspaper readers and viewers, but their grandma is.
That's right.
So they're hearing about it.
Yes.
I'm
sure they are.
Right, and they're talking about it. And so I got written down the cat's out of the bag, and that's with a K because fighting crime. Part of our press release yesterday was her complete identity and everything.
Right.
She understands it's time to come out in the public.
Yes, she has done that, and we appreciate her working with us.
And she certainly is today. As a matter of fact, she's meeting with detectives at Rocky Mount to go over murders and determine how many there are in Rocky Mount.
We need to know exact numbers.
Right,
we need to know what we've got.
Some folks have 50, some folks have 70, and then there's differences in a murder and an unsolved death or unattended death. It could have been a suicide that some folks are seeing. So we're going to get all that ironed out, and we'll have an answer. The chief has been extremely helpful. I'm going to meet with him later today. As a matter of fact, the PD is helping in every way that they can.
They are. The Nash County, Edgecombe County, Rocky Mount Police, all of them are very cooperative and behind this, as it states in our press release.
Right.
There are quotes in there.
And
they are very behind us in this.
We got a picture of the general that, there you go, he's going to be here later today. This is the guy that, if you're going into a fight, you want a leader. And this is the guy that gets things done. I had a reporter with the Associated Press contact me yesterday after we sent the press release out, and they were like, wow, I can't believe he knew the general from Iraq. And he was like, I can't believe that you've got this guy. And that's that's going to be my first and really only question for him today is, he don't need to do this. So I'm really curious as to why he wants to do it.
Well, when he moved here, he jumped into the community wherever he lived or chose to live. He was going to jump. That's how he is.
Right.
He wants to get involved with the community, and he has worked with me on several projects. Worked with WHIG, and we appreciated his leadership.
He's amazing. Right away because I've had a couple run-ins with him, but I've never sat down and talk with him. And
right.
At our organizational meeting last week, the first thing he asked me when I come through the door is like, what's your training? What's your qualifications?
Right.
What's your success rate? I mean, he's a guy that's used to getting it done.
Yeah.
And I could see right away. So
I'm telling you.
I mean, I want to repeat really quick the story that I told him, because I want people to understand as we get into this what we're facing. Right.
Right.
So several years ago, for a newspaper down at the beach, I was writing. A new doctor came to town, and I'd gotten a lot of contact from women saying, you need to write a story about this guy, because they called him Dr. Death, because they said that most of his babies were stillborn, and that he had a terrible reputation for delivering dead babies, I guess. And I do what I try to always do, and that is look for the truth behind what people say.
Right.
And I started finding out that this doctor, he did deliver a lot of stillborn babies, but the reason that nobody was talking about is that he was an expert in bad deliveries that only got called in when the regular doctor couldn't handle the delivery.
Right.
So the real story was how many babies that he saved, not
right.
how many that he lost, because they were already lost when he got the phone call.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, that's what I told the general last week, and that's what I'm telling folks today, is that I mean, this is not going to be easy. I mean, these cases aren't going to. People have been working on these cases for 20 years,
right?
So
right.
or more. So I mean, it's not something that's just going to happen. And and the general said in a statement that we sent out yesterday that he doesn't expect instant results, or a lot of results.
Yes, he did.
So, what I'm trying to tell folks is that if all of our effort results in one case, it's worth it.
It is.
Because I mean, that's one family that needs that.
That's right. That gets closure, and that's what we want.
Absolutely. So moving on, we're going to talk about Mr. Cobb.
Let's talk about Mr. Cobb.
Mr. Cobb. All right, I got this. I try to wing this as much as I can, and I try to memorize some things so I look like I know what I'm doing. But I know it's scary.
Well, and Lyndall did tell it last week. Lyndall said we're going to talk about Mr. Cobb, the man.
Right.
And then next week he's promised me.
Well, why do you always you love stealing?
I love stealing your thunder. I love it.
We're gonna have a conversation about that in the back room.
Yeah, right.
So the thing that I talked about last week about partners and why detectives usually have partners is because one catches something that the other one don't.
Right.
And I was in such a hurry on our first show to talk about how Mr. Cobb died, because I really wanted people to see the horrific death that he went through, that I didn't, which is something that I usually do in print, and that is talk about the victim and who they were in life,
right?
Not just who they were in death. So they're Mr. Cobb, and I have to have this list in front of me because he did so much stuff that there's no way that I could remember all that.
Wow.
And he
I knew he did a lot. And
he had accomplishments that would be the end cap for most people, right? I mean, he had accomplishments that most people could at the end of their life they could feel good about one thing,
Right.
So he had a lot of them. So we're gonna get started on what those are. Okay, so really quickly, just from his obituary, I grabbed these couple of things.
Okay.
He loved history, talking politics, music, and travel. And he was a ECU pirate. I myself am going to ECU right now, so we got that in common. He was born and raised in Nash County, right?
Right.
Okay. Now some other stuff that I've dug up over the last couple of years writing about Mr. Cobb, okay? He's a graduate of local high school, okay? Throughout his life, you see a recurring theme of giving back, right? I mean, the man come from a wealthy family and had a lot of wealth himself, so he didn't need to do the things that he did.
Right.
Right? He was a teacher in Rocky Mount High Schools, back when it was
I didn't know that.
Yeah, back when it was Rocky Mount City Schools.
Wow.
He was a teacher there. He was assistant principal at Rocky Mount Senior High. That tells you how far back it is that we're talking senior high and when they had senior and junior high.
Yeah.
Okay, so he got into real estate after that, right? And he rented homes to people. He wasn't a slumlord, like some rich folks tend to be. He rented homes in the Benvenue neighborhood that he lived in. So he rented homes to people in his own neighborhood.
Right.
Okay. The family owns a lot of property. They're involved in a lot of real estate.
Yes.
Everybody's affected. Everybody in this town is affected by this because we all go to Walmart.
Yes.
And Walmart's named. I mean, the shopping center Walmart's in.
That's right. Cobb's Corners.
Right. Mm-hmm. It's named after his family and their property there. Okay. Like Fred was talking about last week. He is a faithful member of Trinity Lutheran Church. Right. He attended that church his entire life. He sat on the church council many times. And then here's the things that really, like I said, that most people would hang their hat on any one of these and say,
right.
I did this. This is okay. So he was on the Nash County Board of Education, right? He was on the board of directors at the hospital. He was at the board of trustees for the Rocky Mountain Elks Lodge, right?
Right.
And then he was a Nash County commissioner. So
he did quite accomplished.
Extremely accomplished. That was the exact word I was looking for. I talked to his brother Richard, and he said that Jeff did a lot of good things for Nash County, Rocky Mountain in the 1970s and 80s as a politician. He said that he knew so many people from so many different walks of life that he treated everybody the same. And that's I pride myself on that, but of course I don't have any money, so it really doesn't matter how I treat people. But I'm just saying that he was a good guy. And me and Fred were just talking about before we went on the air about how once someone dies, they become a saint, and everybody says, "Oh, he was the greatest guy on earth." But I mean, Jeff Cobb really was a good guy. I mean, you don't have that long list of accomplishments.
Give back
right.
as much as he did without being a good person.
You're absolutely right. So, okay, so we have all that in front of us. What we've talked about already, right? We talked about the first week about how he died, right? He was 75 years old. He was found in his home on November 11th, which was Veterans Day, 2014. He'd been stabbed 4 dozen times with a screwdriver. 4 dozen times, folks, not once or twice, 4 dozen.
That's almost 50 times,
right.
people.
It was not a robbery, right? This was a very passionate, violent act meant to destroy him. Basically, that's what this was all about. Okay, so we talked about last week. His last few days that we know of on Earth, he left the Elks Lodge. He didn't show up for church on Sunday morning. Got folks worried. They went over there once and didn't find anything. They went back. Because
him and his brother talked almost daily.
Right. They went back a couple of days later, and they did find him in the garage that he had converted into an office, and he was his body was in there. And we'll talk a little bit next week about his body and what was found with it and how they discovered it and all that stuff. And then we'll also it's time next week. We talked about how he died. We talked about how he lived.
Right.
Next week we're going to have to get into the dark side of this man's life, and it's a subject that some folks would probably prefer me not to talk about, but it is actually what led to his death. So we're going to have to.
That's important.
We're going to have to talk about it, and there's people out there that know information that may think that I'm not gonna come forward because I don't want to say this or that about the man. So I'll take that load off of them and go ahead and tell folks Mr. Cobb was in church every Sunday morning, but on Friday, Saturday nights, he was out running the roads. So we're gonna get into all of that next week, and we're gonna let people know that he was human.
Yeah.
Humans make mistakes.
Absolutely.
And I think that above all, the man had a great deal of balance in his life, and no point in waiting until next week to say it. I mean, he loved the women.
Right.
And that probably what got him killed. So, we will get into that next week.
Okay. That sounds
How
good.
far we got? What time?
Okay, we'll go to break because we're off schedule. We'll go to break we can go ahead and go to break because we came back early. We'll go to break and then we'll segue into another
case. Yeah, we're
case.
You're peeking at my thing. We're talking about Mr. Butler yet again.
Yes.
We're going to try to find out more information about Mr. Butler.
Yeah, we'll be right back.
Put your graduate in one of the safest, most dependable cars in the market. Put them in a Chevrolet. For 3 years in a row, J.D. Powers has awarded Chevrolet the most dependable cars on the road today. Don Bullock Chevrolet has over 30 different makes of new cars and trucks right now, and you can save thousands. Pre-owned or new, we have it at the price you want. Doing business the better way, Don Bullock Chevrolet.
I was playing flag football with a bunch of childhood friends and reliving the glory days, and I felt the pop. I wound up tearing my quadriceps tendon. The MRI took place, and then it was like you really need surgery. Surgical repair is the only way to fix it. After surgery, of course, there was the rehab phase, and it was a breeze. It really was worth it. To do it here with a qualified and exceptional team, this was the best place that I could have chosen, and it's right here in Rocky Mount. I was treated like a rock star.
I'm Daniel Moss, owner of Cornerstone Funeral Home, and I'd like to invite you and your family to give our family an opportunity to serve you in your time of need. And we offer a full line of funeral services, everything from visitations to graveside services to cremations on site with a live crematory, as well as a banquet hall to meet the catering needs of our families that we serve. We offer catering service, we offer refreshments prior to visitations and services of our family, and we want to invite you to come and experience the difference here at Cornerstone Funeral Home.
When faced with special care needs for elderly or disabled loved ones, families want compassionate, comforting care. That's Tender Touch Home Care Services' goal, providing the level of care we would expect for our own. With over 10 years of home care excellence, Tender Touch provides an array of services that keeps your loved one at home. From personal care, light housekeeping, errands, and meal preparation, to our private duty care program, which combines all of our home care offerings in one package.
Tender Touch Home Care Services, where your needs are our concern.
Welcome to Davis Furniture Company in historical downtown Rocky Mount, where we treat our customers like family. We have 16,000 square feet of floor space for furniture and accessories to help make your house a home. For over 30 years, we've believed in offering quality furniture at the best prices with strong customer service. We also offer in-store financing, delivery, and something you won't find anywhere else. We truly love our customers. We pride ourselves in our relationship with you. Come by and see the Davis difference at Davis Furniture Company.
And welcome back. We're here with Lyndall K, and we're doing the K-Files this morning. It will also play Friday night at 7 o'clock. We apologize this morning for just being on the internet, but we should be back up today. And tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, you can watch this again. So, with that being said, I'm ready.
Oh.
Who's our next person?
All right, well, we very briefly, we're going to touch on Mr. Butler again.
Yes.
You know, I picked Mr. Butler because I didn't know anything about the case, and I wanted to kind of give folks a real-time feel of how these things work.
Right.
But, I mean, they're really getting a real-time feel because I can't find out anything about Mr. Butler.
That's unreal.
And I've been to the courthouse, I've been to voter records, property records. I can't find him. I can't find his wife. I can't find his wife, Betty. You know, she may have moved out of the area a long time ago. You know, remarried. She might be dead. I don't know. But I got Cat at Fighting Crime looking for people too. I mean, she's got a wide reach. You know, usually when she asks questions, she get answers, but she's got zero on Mr. Butler. Wow. So, you know, and I think I said last week that sometimes finding family of one of these cases, it turns into a missing persons case itself. Right. You know, I mean, if Miss Betty is alive somewhere, then she's not missing, but she's missing to me.
She's missing, so, yeah, because we need to contact her.
I really want to talk to her about that. And, you know, yeah, really quick. I mean, just to recap for people, he, Mr. Butler in 1995, he walked away from his Marley Drive home in Meadowbrook, and he had medical conditions. He had just had surgery. You know, he had a tube in his stomach. You know, he had a lot of problems. He left his medicine behind. He disappeared. No one knows what happened to him.
You can't just disappear.
Well, you'd be surprised how many cases are just like that. I got a guy in Tarboro that I'm working on that walked away from a nursing home and they never saw him again. And
I mean, you would see it. You would think somebody on a street corner or somewhere.
Right. Well, I mean, the thing the thing that gets me is that if he walked away from home and just collapsed somewhere and died,
right,
in the neighborhood,
somebody would have found the body.
Yeah, it's been 15 years, so that always, I mean, that just puts up for me when someone's been long-term missing like that. I mean, they could find him in the woods tomorrow, but I just have the gut feeling that after all this time that something untoward happened to Mr.
Yes,
Butler.
I think so.
Okay, so just to let folks know where we're heading in the coming weeks, right? Because one thing that we've talked about over and over, and the folks that have set up this board to and let me say real quick about it, but let me explain that to the folks what's going on with the board really quickly. The board is a separate entity that has been created to assist law enforcement with unsolved crimes, to raise money, to provide reward money, to meet with detectives and talk about these cases. What we're doing is we fall under that umbrella. What we do, what Fighting Crime does. Certainly if somebody else has information, the number's there on the screen. If somebody calls that number that's never seen the show before,
yes, it's
not about the show. It's about solving these murders.
That's right.
So we want to. I mean, what we're doing is we're kind of like we're the communications arm of this board, but we're certainly not. We're not restrictive. So if anybody that wants to get involved in this and everything, I mean, it's the general show. It's the general's.
He is going. Yeah, the board. Right. The money is funneled through the board. The board raises the money, and we have managed to raise $15,000. I will tell you that in reward money
in like a week and a half.
And when you start talking money, people start talking.
Right.
And that's what we want. We want.
And all the tips, that phone number right there, that is Fighting Crime's phone number, hotline that they've set up for this. The information that folks give to that phone number does not come to me and Sandra. We will not know the information. That information will go straight to law enforcement. And if they decide to come back to the board and talk to the board about anything that they found, that's fine. But this is not us seeking information. I don't like to get in between law enforcement and information. I never have, So that information's going to Fighting Crime, who has, I think an 8-year record helping solve hundreds. And I was blown away by that number because I know that she's effective, but she said that she stopped counting around 800 or 900 crimes. We're talking shoplifting and breaking and entering and all these things, but still, I mean, those are crimes that she's helped resolve.
Right.
Two murders in the last year. We're here to put this information
out. Put the message out.
Right.
Put the word out.
We're here to detail these cases.
That's right.
So that the folks that are involved in it,
we're here to bait the
sweat
hook.
A little bit. Absolutely. So one thing that we're going to get into, and that's what the board really wanted us to get into, and that is the Seven Bridges Road case.
Yes.
And
I know everybody wants to talk about that.
Over the coming weeks and months, we're going to talk about it a lot.
Very interesting.
I have records for 20 years. We call this thing the K files because I keep files on everything. My files on that case are probably as large as everything else put together. Right. So there's a lot of information out there. There's one woman that is still missing. Her body's never been found. Her name is Joyce Durham. They have, there's her picture there. They have never found her. And the sad thing is that there were 3 or 4 of these women back in 2010 or so that had been found.
Right.
And each time that they found a new body, each one of these families had hoped that it was their loved one, but it was not, So, especially for the Durham family, I've talked to her father a lot and the pain that this family's gone through over the years. She's still out there, folks. She's probably somewhere on Seven Bridges Road. The National Guard looked for her. A lot of law enforcement has looked for her, but she's out there somewhere. And hopefully we can find her in the process of all of this, and we can talk about all the other women that were victims of Mr. Pittman and some that weren't. You know, we'll get into all of that, folks. So don't, you know, this is something that that we're not going to let go. I'm not going to let it go. We're not going to let it go. Okay, and then we want to continue talking about Leroy Dunston and why this case is special is because the Dunston family contacted us directly and said, "Can you look at this case?" So, you know, that was
interesting. From doing this show, we've already had a call from this family, from a family member of this man.
Right.
So we have gotten our first, but anyway, this was the card game.
Right. This is what we talked about last week. He's playing cards at a house across the street from his. He lived on like Pine Street, and this house is on.
So was this like a gambling house?
Yeah,
card
it was.
House?
Yeah, you see it there.
Oh, there it is.
It's been boarded up now since Mr. Dunston has died. But I was in the neighborhood the other day, and the thing that really strikes me about that house is that house is boarded up. There's two houses across the street that are boarded. Oh, it's Gay Street, by the way.
Gay Street, okay.
That house is boarded up. Two houses across the street are boarded up. But then the houses right next to it have manicured lawns, and you know, you can tell that the folks really care about their property.
Wow.
So I mean, it's in a lot of, you know, I live in Spring Hope. We have the same thing. We have we'll have 3 or 4 houses that are really immaculate, and you know, and people really care about them, and then you'll have a house that is just boarded up and falling apart. And so Mr. Dunston's in this house playing cards a couple years ago, and he's won a lot of money. From what I understand, he was winning two or three nights in a row. He was on a winning streak, and he leaves the card game, or maybe there's kind of a, we don't really know what happened, but right. At some point he's playing cards, and then the next minute he's dead in his driveway with 6 bullet holes in him. So we were talking about with Fred last week, you know, did he win too much at the card game, you know, and they decided to take that money back, or was it someone else who knew in the neighborhood that he was winning money and decided to hit him as he came out of the card game? The thing that I find, you know, really curious is that he's, you know, according to his autopsy, he's sitting in his car. He's got his left foot out on the ground, so it's like, you know, like in a position where someone would be sitting in their car.
But no bullet holes or anything on the car.
No damage at all. No damage broken windows. Right. No holes. Yeah. So you get shot four times in the torso and twice in the leg, but no damage at all. And then, you know, the idea also was that maybe he was shot. I think you brought that up, Fred, that maybe he was shot and tried to make it to the car, and then, you know, didn't make, you know, that's as far as he got. So, you know, I mean, it's kind of a whodunit. I mean, most unsolved cases are, the law enforcement knows who did it. It's just a matter of finding the evidence, but I'm not sure what's going on. It looks like all you have to do is find out who played cards. Right. Well, I mean, you know, and one thing I want to do with the show is get into the complicatedness of evidence, you know, of what evidence is what. Like, you know, we hear a lot about DNA today. Right. You know, because of CSI and all these shows. People think that DNA is a slam dunk. But I think what the majority of the public doesn't understand, that DNA is actually circumstantial evidence. You always hear all the time that circumstantial evidence is weak, you know, but yet everybody thinks DNA is the greatest. Right. DNA is circumstantial in that, okay, so let's say you have a rape victim and you have DNA in that case. Well, how did the DNA get there? Right. That's what makes it circumstantial, right? So then direct evidence. Interesting. It's indirect and direct. Direct evidence would be an eyewitness. Police love eyewitnesses. I mean, I talk to the detectives all the time. They'll take an eyewitness over DNA, because an eyewitness can get on the stand and say, I saw that person do that. Right. That's direct evidence. They don't need to get an expert up there and explain what they saw. Right. So that's one thing that I want to start talking about in the coming weeks is that some of these cases seem so simple, but it's really a lot of times it's the ones that seem so obvious are the hardest ones to solve. And when we wrap up Mr. Cobb in a couple weeks, we're going to start talking about Orlando Flowers, a man.
Who was he?
He was shot and killed a few years ago over what I believe was a dispute over a woman, and the circumstantial evidence in that case is tremendous. And again, the law enforcement has to, in this case the Rocky Mountain Police Department, they have to come up with a case that they can present to the DA that the DA thinks that he can take to trial and win.
Right.
So, in the court of public opinion, sometimes it's really easy to say, "Oh, that guy did that."
Right.
But it's a lot harder knowing that somebody did it and proving that somebody did it. And in America,
Absolutely.
In America, you're innocent till proven guilty.
Till proven guilty.
So you have to prove
right.
it. You have to prove it, and that's where I'd say probably 90% of these cases fall into that category where they know who did it. They've got good evidence on who did it, but it's just not enough to go to court with. So they keep working these, trying to find out more evidence. And then that other 10% are just honest to goodness mysteries.
Right.
We don't know who did it. Cops, they'll tell you right up front, we have no clue who did this one. So you have to work on that. So Mr. Dunson's a fascinating case because this is a guy that other than playing cards, he's a law-abiding citizen that,
right.
Obviously he's a snazzy dresser. This is a guy that had a good family and a good life. And
so he was married.
I don't know if he was married at that exact moment, right? Yeah, but he has
kids.
Yes. So the thing is like if playing cards is definitely not worth getting shot over. We got a county chairman that loves to play cards. So it's not something that. A lot of times when it comes to victims, people can make themselves feel better by saying, "Oh, well, she shouldn't have been doing that," mm-hmm. or "He shouldn't have been doing that," or whatever. But a card game, a friendly card game in your neighborhood is not something that you think you're going to get shot.
You wouldn't think you'd get killed over it,
right? But then again, I don't know exactly how much money they're dealing with, but when I was a kid, I had two brothers that were pretty bad characters. We're talking about mid-'80s. A Saturday night for them was an 8-ball in one pocket and a 38 in the other one, right? They were terrible, and I tagged along with them. And I remember we were at a card game on Avens Ferry Road. People that are watching in Lee County, they know exactly where I'm talking about. We was on a card game at Avens Ferry Road, and it was about 4 or 5 people playing. And this old guy named Monk, he was losing. And there was drinking and some alcohol and probably some drugs going on and whatnot. And Monk was losing, so he just snatched up the tablecloth that had all the cards, all the money, all the drinks, everything. He snatched up the whole thing and jumped out the window and ran away. Oh. I'm like 12 years old, so I know card games can go south pretty quick, but
that one went south.
It's pretty extreme to kill somebody over it. Unless it was just an out-and-out robbery, And then that just makes me wonder whether it was somebody at the card game or whether, people in neighborhoods talk a lot,
yeah,
and if
absolutely.
they know Leroy's been on a running streak for 3 days and then he's dead, so
that's too weird.
And how much money, I don't know exactly how much money he had on his on his body when he died.
But they did take his winnings, right?
Right, yeah, well, I assume so, because he didn't have them. So, but we don't know how much the winnings were. It could have been thousands of dollars, or it could have been,
right.
I had a best friend in high school whose mother worked at a convenience store, and she was killed with a guy with a shotgun. He got about $43 out of the cash register. So her life to him was worth $43. Mr. Dunson might have had a couple $1,000.
Yeah, we don't know. We don't have any way of knowing.
So anyway, Kat she is going to talk to the police today. And we're going to narrow down. We're going to find out exactly how many cases we're talking about in Rocky Mount. And, when people throw out that number, even from 50 to 70, one thing that people got to take into account is we're going all the way back to the 70s.
Right.
So it's not like there's 50 murders from the last year or two. These reach all the way back to the 70s. And I think some of those older cases, we might have a better shot with some of those older cases than we do the ones from the last couple of years.
Wow.
Because, I mean, drive-bys and all that are just historically hard to solve,
Yes.
But some of these cases reaching further back,
Well, that's what we hope.
Absolutely.
We can solve
Absolutely.
a crime. That's
Well,
our mission.
Yes, it is, and for the families out there that are watching, I mean, we're going to get to their story. I want to take time with each person. I don't want to, we could just do a show where we just threw up 20 posters, and said this, call this number, but I mean,
Lyndall does not want to rush through it.
Right. I want to take time and let folks see that these people are human, and I want people to see. I want to examine these cases for folks that are interested, and let people know that these people were people, and not just a crime stat.
Well, we're going to go to break. I'm going to let you come back. I'm going to step aside, let you come back with the General and Lyndall to talk about the board and how this is structured and why we're doing this. So we'll be right back after these messages.
Well, good. It's good.
We don't know who's going to interview here. Of course, this is General Gordon Bray. I think everybody in this area knows you. You've got a tremendous reputation, right? I've got one question for you.
Okay.
And then I want you to tell everybody what's going on.
Okay.
My dad's a retired Chief Master Sergeant in the Air Force. He was in 30 years. He was E9. Not a lot of people make it to E9.
Yeah.
So his retirement check's pretty good. I can't imagine what your retirement check is, right? So, my point is that you don't have to do any of this. I mean, you could have retired and kicked back and gone fishing for the next 20 years, But you're involved in a lot, and you're involved in so much that I couldn't even squeeze a tenth of it into the press release we sent out yesterday. I mean, and then all the stuff that you're involved in, then you've decided to take on leadership in this. Something that is not going to be easy. Like you said yesterday, it's not going to be easy. And it's not going to be something, there's not going to be a lot of success out of this because it is a hard job.
Sure.
So that's that's really what I just want to, why are you involved in this?
Yeah. Twofold. First of all, some folks came to me and asked, specifically Sandra and WHIG as the only consistent voice for the area. Sandra asked me, and there's a lot of concern. People say, well, are they using you? People are using you, and I laugh at that because the reality is this: I don't do anything that I don't think has one, merit, and two, it's something that I have an interest in. So the first thing I had was the interest is that anytime you can help your community and help families, you don't have an option. You don't have an option. When you're asked to do something and you can make it happen, you're supposed to step up. A lot of folks don't like Andrew Jackson, but that was one of his philosophies. But the reality is that that's what you're supposed to do. And I raised my right hand a long time ago to the good of the nation. And we've got some challenges. And you have two choices when you're asked to do something. You always have three choices. The first choice is you can watch something happen, you can let something happen, or the third thing is you can make it happen. I try to think that I'm on that last piece where I try to make things happen. There is a lot of misconceptions about Rocky Mount, but those misconceptions sometimes feed people's feelings. Last evening, my wife, she was sitting there with a little bit of distraught. She says, some of the things that happen in Rocky Mount, I'm not sure that I would have made my choice to come here. Fortunately, my daughter, who was also decided to move here, she says, Mama, the concern you have about issues and things like racism, etc., they happen all over. My wife was kind of sheltered because she lived most of her life on military bases. My daughter, of course, has not. She's actually done a stint as an intern in London, a stint as an intern in Tanzania, and she's been on World Global Shapers, and now she chose to come here. She left Pittsburgh after living there 4 years. She said, Mom, it's worse in a lot of places. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, a lot of people here in Rocky Mount don't understand that, and there are different feelings. So the goal here is to say, how do you take care of families? How do you take care of families that lost somebody? I can't imagine how that would feel to lose someone and never know what happened. So this gives us a chance to do that. And by the way, if you've got a question, call in. And someone called during the break and I didn't answer it. But the reality is, as long as I'm on the show and if I'm here, if you've got a question, you'll make a comment, it's okay. Call in and we'll answer the phone. And I don't block anything, okay? I really don't. I let people talk because that's part of transparency. So my goal was I could either say, let someone else do it, but candidly, I don't think there's a person in Rocky Mount that has the balance of perspectives that I try to bring. And so in the effort to make it happen, I raised my hand to Sandra and said, "Yep, I will go ahead and chair this effort because I want to support our legal system." I think sometimes people forget policemen, soldiers. They do not provide security for a city or a nation. I've done that for real. I've went into some place and had to provide soldiers to provide the security, created a police force in a nation. And then the people kept asking for more police. The reality is the people really police their cities. The people police their communities. The police forces enforce the law. And so what was critical to me is getting the voices of Clee Atkinson, Keith Stone, and George Robinson to sign up, because I wouldn't have signed up till they signed up.
Yes, sir.
Because that's important.
And I knew they would, because individually, as those three men took charge, of course, I wasn't here when Keith Stone became sheriff, but I was here for when George Robinson became chief and Clee Atkinson became sheriff. The first thing that they said to me was, "We're going to look at," because they know it's a passion of mine. They know that, I mean, that's what that's all I really care about. They both of them said, we're going to do something. We're going to figure out how to do something to help solve some of these cases. Yeah. And they could have shuffled off. A lot of law enforcement leaders pushed old cases off on the last administration and say, well, that's not on my watch. So, there's no call. When there's a murder committed yesterday, there's pressure to solve that case.
Sure.
There's no one's calling on these three men to solve cases from 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So I'm impressed. I'm ecstatic, and I'm extremely pleased to see that those three guys want to do this. Yeah. And then of course to have you, at the meeting last week, I walk in the door and you start asking me all these questions. What have I done? What's my qualifications? What's my training? I knew right then that you were the guy for the job, because you're the kind of guy that gets things done, and that's what this thing needs. And I'm not in charge of anything. I sit here and I've got 20 years experience of doing this kind of stuff. So I sit up here and clown around and get this information out. But you're the man that's going to make this happen.
Well, you and Ms. Cookby, y'all have a talent, a nose, a passion for trying to dig in and find those questions, those answers. And I respect that, because that's what it takes. Now, kind of going back to people. First of all, you got to understand that a cold case is a cold case for a reason. The information that would lead to an arrest and a conviction. Because the DA is, as you said in your last segment, the DA is looking to see if there's enough information, not interest, because interest is where the public is screaming and hollering, but it's not what you think you know or what you know, it's what you can prove.
Right.
And so, you know, I look at the qualifications of the guy that we've got at the DA, and he's done trial cases and lawyers, and so he knows what it takes to win. And so someone says a cold case has been out there for a while and it wasn't enough. Now, usually, back to the rule of law, somebody knows something.
Yes, sir.
And in recent years, we've been able to find different methods for trying to be able to understand, learn, and get the kind of proof that's essential for bringing a case to closure. So if these cases that, by the way, all the cases are supposed to be brought to us from the law enforcement, meaning they think they've got something that's pretty close. That's the ideal.
Right.
But just like someone brought something to you off the street, they said, I'd like to know more about. The second part of what I'm going to ask the board to do is make sure that it is also consistent and is amplified by the legal side of the house.
Yes, sir.
Because while it's interesting and will have some interest, I think it has to be tied to the law enforcement side of the house. The other question that I get asked sometimes is, how do we pick the cases? There's a corridor, and this is, I call it the Rocky Mount corridor is centrally between two counties, but because we have a footprint that's really three, the tri-counties, that's a corridor. And the corridor really runs north-south I-95 all the way down to Fort Bragg and Cumberland County, and then east-west, and it goes all the way over to Pitt, and then all the way to the just outside of Raleigh. That's a core that drives us. And you know, if you don't believe it, we really are a crossroads to greatness. Rocky Mount is that. That's what got me here. But we also are connected to those other places, Tarboro, Nashville, Roanoke Rapids, as a matter of fact, and Wilson. Those major four cities and towns that support us, there is almost 250,000 people, in fact, a third of a million people in that corridor.
Wow.
Okay? And so sometimes we forget that that's where we are. Somebody has a question. Let's see who this is. Hello.
Yes, sir. I usually watch you on Green Light. What is going on, and why can't we get you in Wilson?
First of all, I live in Rocky Mount, and Wilson was on my screen, but the problem is I hate to say this, Wilson was too far off of, the city was too far off I-95 and off 64, but I appreciate you, and I thank you for asking.
I think there is
The channel will not be back.
No, it will. Excuse me. There was a lightning strike over the weekend, and they lost their satellite.
Okay.
So they're working on it. It should be back today. That's what I'm told.
Okay, thank you so much. I was just checking because I really am missing your channel.
All right. Well, you told me. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
We'll tell Sandra that. She was good to hear that.
She's got it. That's good. Thank you, ma'am.
So much.
All right.
Watch it online.
She obviously is.
Yeah, she must be, Sandra, because she called in.
Well,
unless she just randomly called in at this time saying, "Where's my show?"
Well, she's probably streaming. So anyhow, this is what I think we're going to be able to do. We're going to be able to try to get this corridor and look at those things that happen. You know, the old Rocky Mount 10 was a thing that people associate Rocky Mount. Well, they weren't even from Rocky Mount. This is, but because of the corridor that we're in, because of how traffic flows, we sometimes get a lot of information, a lot of people that are transiting through our area. And, you know, and again, back to this idea of rule of law. Rule of law, people are involved. There's this caller just now, she's from Wilson. There's an interest. Sometimes people are going to be you know, if you can imagine, I will bet that there was somebody, when you put a date and a time sometimes of what happened, and oh, by the way, you showed a picture of a house, somebody coincidentally could have actually been passing by and saw something that was in their mind totally unrelated.
Right.
And then what happened is, when that date was triggered, they remembered something. And it may be saying, well, I saw, at that date I was, I remember coming back from, and people's minds said, I was coming back from the grocery store and I saw a flash in the house, and I just thought power went out. And they may have seen a flash of a gun or something else.
Right.
And then it helps build a story that the investigative team or the DA puts the pictures together and say, okay, that gives us something else. It also ties to somebody else, and it helps.
You're right. And that's what I do. Is I have no misconception about who solves these cases.
Sure.
The detectives are working these cases and have worked these cases over and over. What I want to do with this show is, like you said, is get the public a chance to get involved and participate. And that's, I love what you said in the press release, that what's missing here is public participation. So we're giving them an avenue to be able to do that.
We run our streets. We run our neighborhoods. The community does it. Our voices. If people believe that whatever they do in the dark will come to light, more people will be kept honest. There's a few people who are absolutely evil, just absolutely evil, and do not care. Last week, I was doing an interview with a gentleman named Big U, and that name means nothing to anybody else. But if I said Crips, people know what that is. Big U is the leader of the Crips, just finished 13 years life sentence. And one of the things he said in the Crips, one of the things that they talked about they didn't do, they knew you don't touch a policeman. Now that was interesting to me, because even in that kind of an environment, there's a code. And so when somebody does something that says this guy, whoever it was operating outside, when you see something like that occur, mafia guys they try to stay away from that. If they'll buy them all first.
It's bad for business.
It's bad for a lot of reasons. That's exactly right. So even in that environment, there's some kind of a respect for something. And in most communities, people look out their doors and they kind of watch a call. My neighbors will get on the phone and call. And I think in most neighborhoods, people will call. People will pick up the phone or check. What changes is when there's an intimidation factor. And what this affords us to be able to do, is for someone that saw something to retain their anonymity. Mm-hmm. Because I'm not naive enough to know that if there's really somebody that's sinister and evil doing something, the people that saw it, they believe that the bad guys know what they saw. And so we give them a chance to be anonymous, to call in, to say, I saw this, and then let the legal authorities figure out how to protect them. And then at the same time, we can reward some of that with minimal dollars. And I'll be very candid. It's whatever money we give to somebody, even though it may be a large amount, it really does not replace the value of them stepping forward, because when one person steps forward, it emboldens someone else to say, I got to step forward.
Yes, sir. I was involved in a similar program like this in Jacksonville many years ago. Mm-hmm. And for I'd say about 3 years running, that there wasn't a single homicide solved in that town that didn't involve a tip of this nature. Yeah. So you're right, once it starts, and once that person gets that money, and they start telling their cousins, hey, I got paid, it does have an effect where people, not everybody's altruistic as other people. Some people just want the money, but as long as the information's good, that's fine. But there are people who will come forward. You're right. The anonymity part of it is what will bring them forward.
Yeah.
And anything that I can do that that'll do that. And you mentioned about case selection. And me and Sandra, we tried to get this show off the ground several times, and then we had snowstorms, and then we had the COVID, and we had just a lot of problems over the last year or so. So we started. Sometimes you just have to start something, or So we started without the board, just doing the show. And so the first 5 or so cases that we picked, we just picked them. But now that you're here to be in charge and everything, we're going to do what you say, and we're going to work with law enforcement to highlight those cases that they think something can get done with it.
Because
we're here to help.
Yeah, at the end of the day, the real goal is to be able to bring some closure. Now, and I don't want to confuse anybody or make anybody believe that, no kidding, there'll be an announcement that's going to come up on the screen, and we're going to say this is a case, and then next week we're going to be proudly tapping chests and say it's resolved. Very candidly, that we may go literally a year and have nothing answered. But we'll create the buzz that will get to somebody. First of all, the loved ones that are surviving will know that the case is cold, but not closed.
Yes, sir.
That's our support to law enforcement. The second thing that's going to happen is in the communities, all of you all are going to know that, one, you matter. You matter. Your voice matters. It is critical that you step up, make the phone calls, and let somebody else try to solve that case for you. We really appreciate the opportunity to be able to do something for the community. And that's really the goal. That's what brings us here. Code is not closed. You matter. And rule of law is really what has to be the requirement here in Rocky Mountain.
Thank you very much, General.
Well, I'm glad to be here. I appreciate you, and everybody stay safe out there and listen to the governor.
Thank you.